a lot of men, because I won't say all, aren't even taught that love is important. Like, I don't think that I grew up in a family with a lot of men, and I can't say that like my brothers and all my uncles even taught me, like, just taught that love was important. Um, and so I think that men are taught that other things are important. And so they define and align themselves with these other things, right? And so when it comes to relationship, emotional repression, right? Like, if love isn't important, then why are all of these emotions that are associated with it important? Like, they aren't, right? And so now we're suppressing emotions. I also think that, like, I don't know, I've especially with young people, like, I'm noticing this, like, being emotionalist is a flex. Like, I'm unbothered. I am not emotional because apparently, if men are being taught that being emotional makes you weak, and I feel like a lot of young people are tapping into that masculinity and like masculine energy, both, you know, all the genders, right? Both female identified folks, male identified folks, or just straight up people, right? Like, tapping into this energy of being unbothered and not being emotional. Now we're suppressing our emotions. We're not expressing them because for whatever reason it's cooler to be
Yeah.
it's cooler to not have our hands on emotions. And when you don't have your hand on emotions, I want you to know, like, the body keeps score. It's going to come out in one way or another. It could come out in a positive way if we decide to put it out in the forefront and receive the information that emotions give us. So emotions are important because they give us information.
Well, what first comes to mind is being strong, being uh, like a leader, being I don't know, like, I know it's like a social construct we have that masculinity it should be like someone that's not sensitive, someone that's has control of everything, has,
Mhm.
that's what kind of means to me in my head.
Am I man enough? Am I man enough to feel? Am I man enough? Am I man enough to heal? Am I man enough? Am I man enough to be sad? Am I man enough? Am I man enough to be a dad? Am I man enough? Am I man enough to be tough? Am I man enough to be loved? Am I man enough? Am I man enough to suppress? Am I man enough to express? Am I man enough? Am I man enough to cry? But am I man enough to ask myself why? Am I man enough? Mic drop. I'm done.
Treat others how you wish you had been treated.
But it's about breaking down the defenses, right? It's breaking down that toxic masculinity so that we can actually access the thing that our heart really longs for, which is to be loved, right? To be cared for and to be held. Uh, and too much of that masculinity stuff gets in the way.
To play more. Like, don't forget to play. You know,
I love
we
that. I
like
fucking love that.
we take ourselves so seriously, and like, you need to, in some instances, to like get your shit together and put your head back on to like take the next steps or whatever. But why? Why are you taking yourself seriously if not to play, if not
Yeah.
to live and enjoy being a part of this human experience? So yeah, don't forget to play.
They should understand that it isn't about who's better than who. I think it's a great opportunity for us as a society to kind of just um, be there for each other and work together. And yeah, that's pretty much always what we kind of want to project, especially with like that project. It was about that. It was about like the advantages of of this movement, and for men to express themselves freely, for them to be able, because we already know what the advantages for women are. So I guess that we need to talk about and refer to the advantages of men being kind of a part of it, and not it being something exclusive for women, but how we benefit as a society in general. Whether it's being a woman, a man, a non-binary, or a child, an elderly person. There's just so many different aspects to it that are convenient and just, good for us in general, that I think we should at least give it a try.
And I think that we need to really get back in touch with our bodies. Like when we think about masculinity in a wholesome way, in a radical way, what does it mean to inhabit, a body of a wholesomely masculine person, right? I think that once we reclaim that, then we might all be on a good track, right? But we can't do it by ourselves. And so I'm really glad to be in community with you, and to know that there's another person that I can count on to be on this journey with. You feel me?
Absolutely. It feels good to not be feeling so alone.
I think make space and give grace is probably where I'm at right now. I think that right now, I think we need to I think we need to make space for other people, but also for ourselves, right? And making space for others is also like implicitly taking space for yourself and carving out what you want. And I think that for me right now, it's been really important to like leverage a platform to talk about things that matter. But everyone can do that. Whether you have a podcast, whether you have an IG live series, just give each other the space to like be themselves, be kind, be vulnerable, be real. And then what I mean by give grace is that whether it's, our mental health, whether it's our fluctuating bodies, whether it's anything, I think that it's so important to give grace to one another and to ourselves, because we're living through the most unique time in human history, this incredibly globalized era where everyone is connected digitally. But, unlike past pandemics, we're all connected, but we're also apart. So I think, just carve out something for yourself, and then also, give yourself some grace and some purpose. If you need to take a mental health day, take a mental health day. If you need to, give some extra care to someone else because people are going through it. I mentioned, men before. This applies to friends. This applies to romantic partners. This applies to whomever. Not just men, women, anyone.
All of this shit was made up to begin with. So, like, what's to say that I can't exist as, like, a non-binary? Like, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I can, and that's how I feel. And that's, like, aligned with, like, my belief, like, like that's aligned with like the way that I feel about myself. And like once I was able to like liberate myself from the gender binary and understand that like it's actually a lot safer and more authentic for me to exist in a place that exists outside of the gender binary, like my life just got so much easier, and I think that like just by expanding our capacity to understand what gender can be. And like there's a lot of like gender can be anything, like, and like being okay with that, and like kind of being like, yeah, the things that we've been traditionally like societally conditioned to believe as fact or as true as it exists, like in this patriarchal system that like upholds the gender binary, we don't actually have to think about that. Like we don't have to be chained to that if we don't want to be. And once you get to that place, like you're on the path to like full liberation, because once you're able to like absolve yourself from like feeling tied to the the rigidity of the gender binary, you can kind of understand that like all of these things that we've been all of these societal like locks that we thought like were just like impenetrable are actually like can be fucked with.
Mhm.
Like, and like can be destroyed, can be rethought, can be, you know, totally different. So
Again, talking about masculinity, like I grew up not thinking I was man enough for a lot of things, right? I grew up comparing myself to all these different men that were in, you know, my peripheral, and always finding something to compare myself with, right? Like I wasn't athletic enough, or I didn't have that deep of a voice over here, or, you know, I wasn't as funny over there. And at the end of the day, you know, my nephew to tell me that, you know, I was there for him, right? And it really took me back. And I'm gonna be honest with you, like I bawled because I was just like, yo, this is a whole 180 move right now, right? Like I right now am being a support for another man, right? And someone who I love, right? My nephew's my heart at the end of the day. And then of course thinking about my other nephew who passed away and how he didn't have that. He didn't have somebody to help him deal with that idea of masculinity. And again, that whole rep, right? I gotta respect, I gotta get my pride, I gotta get my respect on the street. And unfortunately that's part of the reason why he, you know, he's not with us anymore. So this idea of masculinity became even more real for me because I was just like, okay, this is something that we really need to sit down. And I think a lot of inner thought and a lot of processing for me was like this idea of what I thought was masculinity, what I thought was being masculine is just a fallacy. It's not real. Do you know what I mean? Like this idea of what we think, and if you think about it, each and every one of us has a different perception of what being masculine is. It's not all the same, right?
Mhm.
Like depending on where you grew up, depending on, you know, your family and how you were raised, like everybody has a different idea of what being masculine is. There was I think Craze, I think he's still on here. Craze had posted something on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, and it was a conversation that someone had put about, you know, have you ever had a situation where you did something and that was interpreted as not being man enough or not masculine enough? And bro, the stuff that was, I don't know if you saw it. I want to say you did see it, but the stuff that was coming up was like hugging my son. Do you know what I mean? Like hugging your son, so you won't hug your son because that's not masculine enough. Yo, that blew my mind away. Do you know what I mean? That blew my mind away. You know how many times I wish my father would have given me a hug? Do you know what I mean? Like it just I think about me as a kid and wanting that companionship with my pops, and it just never happened. It just never happened. And to this day, my father's still alive, thank God, but to this day, I don't have that friendship with my pops. I can't sit down with my dad and have a real conversation. You know, when I go to the house to visit my parents, it's like we're passing each other in the street like we're boys. Sup?
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? But like my mom, I'll give my mom the biggest hug, the biggest kiss, bendición, mommy. You know what I mean? Like, but my pops is more like, what's up? And he'll keep walking, right? And it's just like, coño, like, idea that we can't embrace another man, or we can't embrace your son, somebody that comes from you. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's just like all this, bro. It blew, and I think the death of my nephew just really heightened it for me. I literally called the guys that, you know, we do the weekly stuff with. I was just like, yo, we need to do something. Like we need to start going out there, and we need to start having these conversations because it's just so real, man. And I was mad because I said to myself, yo, where are all these macho dudes that I thought were men? Where are they now to support my nephew? Where are they? Where are those dudes? Do you know what I mean? And it was just like I had to sit back and think they're part of the process, just like I am, right? They're still a part of the same thing. They're still receiving this idea of what masculinity is and what it's supposed to mean. So yeah, man, it just kind of blew my mind away. My family's still dealing with, you know, the whole outcome of all that stuff. They're still trying to work things out and stuff like that. But I want to say that it's definitely helped me get a clearer mind on this whole idea of what masculinity is and how we should be looking at it, right? And I don't know. I still, like I said, I don't have the answers. I don't have all the answers. I don't know if I'm ever going to have the answers. But just taking it one conversation at a time, I think, is the only way we're going to be able to do it.